This video is going to have spoilers for the ending of Starfield, which should be obvious from the title, but you'd be amazed at how many people would see that title and not make the logical leap that this video is going to have spoilers for a month-old game. That, and some people actually don't look at YouTube while using it and autoplay from video to video like some sort of ADHD dopamine-chasing rabbit, and so don't even see the titles. So, yeah, that should be enough time for those of you who are letting YouTube's algorithm lead them by the nose to panic click away from the video, right? Oh well, if like a solid minute of me wasting time at the beginning of a video, the most vital minute, mind you, the one MatPat told me was specifically costing me viewers because I burned it with long, rambling intros that had nothing to do with the video's content, and yet here I am when my very livelihood hinges on me not wasting viewership rambling on and on, but the truth of the matter is that this rambling nonsense is what helps me get into the rhythm of writing scripts for videos. Like, it sets the pace for me. It's like a warm-up. And so you might ask me, Austin, why don't you write up the rambling intro to get yourself all loosey-goosey for the main script and then delete the rambling intro so it doesn't eat up time at the beginning of episodes? And to that I say, I could, but it took me way longer than made any sense for me to get into Starfield. In fact, I even said in a tweet, follow me on Twitter by the way, I'm amazing, that I thought Fallout 4 was better than Starfield. This was for a few reasons. I found the plot hooks in the first hours of Fallout 4 to be very compelling. This might strike you as a bit silly, but the hunt for Sean and specifically the tracking of Kellogg all felt very compelling MacGuffins for me. In fact, just thinking about it now in retrospect as I write this, the entire first half of Fallout 4 is probably some of the best video gaming that Bethesda has ever done. Being able to experience the panic of the nuclear apocalypse firsthand, running to the vault, finding safety inside, knowing that Oblivion is happening just 100 feet above you, followed by the horror of being trapped in a box while you watch your spouse being killed in front of you and your child is stolen, then the gumshoe work you do in the new world as you acclimate to the hellscape that is the New World Order, all the while trying to cope with losing two of the most important people in your life. All of this culminating with an epic showdown with probably the toughest boss fight in the game. One person driven by a mix of revenge and parental instinct, hardened by having lived through the apocalypse and through their time in the wasteland, clashing with a near immortal criminal born of grit and pain. It reminds me of the end of Once Upon a Time in the West. Two titanic equals meeting in a final showdown. It's anybody's game. One driven by righteousness and justice, the other by survival at all costs and brutal pragmatism. That section of the game leading all the way to the confrontation with Kellogg is so freaking good, it makes me angry. The game falls off from there, and I could genuinely feel my character's motivations deflate entirely when I met Sean in the Institute, but that whole beginning part leading up to the fight with Kellogg, finalizing with the reveal of the Brotherhood of Steel, no notes, Bethesda. A+ storytelling. Starfield, meanwhile, I just didn't find the artifacts you find in the game to be super compelling. The mystery surrounding them, finding them, unwrapping the story surrounding them, and the Starborn just didn't really motivate me. I'll get more into my issues with the game later, but for the sake of brevity at the moment and for it to not sound like I'm griping too much, I just didn't feel hooked by the story, which is ultimately what makes me play a game. Maybe I'm motivated by character-driven stories, not plot-driven stories. That is, I'm hooked more by people's relationships to one another, and that's what drives me forward to care about a protagonist and get immersed in a world, feeling like I'm connecting on an interpersonal level with what's happening in the game. It's what I love so much about Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor. Those stories are just so personality and relationship driven. You can really connect with why people are moving in the world. I realize this leaves some sort of a plot hole in Austin lore where I love Soulsborne games, which basically has no character-driven storytelling, and to that I say, you can't make me be consistent, neener. Speaking of consistency, you know what's consistent? The threat of people stealing your online data, which is why today's sponsor, NordVPN, exists, to bring privacy and security to your time online. I spend a lot of time on the internet as a part of my job, like too much time, and keeping myself safe, it's a big concern of mine since I've been making YouTube videos for almost 10 years now, and with Nord, I don't have to worry. With their threat protection service, they protect me from malware and ad trackers, but most importantly, they monitor the dark web to see if someone's leaked my private information so I can do something about it. All of this for the cost of a cup of coffee a month, and if you use my URL, nordvpn.com/shoddycast, you can get a 2-year plan plus 4 months free with a 30-day risk-free money-back guarantee. If you're in the market for a one-click VPN, it's a great way to help out the channel and yourself in one easy move. Anyway, back to Starfield. I probably wouldn't have gotten too far into the game, honestly, if it weren't for the fact that I was live streaming it, but I did. I committed to it even though there were a bunch of other things competing for my attention, and I'm glad I did, because it's what gave Starfield its moment to shine for me. Which brings me to my follow-up tweet, that the New Game Plus has swung me the other direction on Starfield almost completely. Ever since beating the game, I've been unable to stop playing, grinding out ending after ending as I loop through the game over and over and over again, like an automaton. Near Automata. That's what this game's ending reminds me of, establishing a core concept for your game narratively and then working through it mechanically to its logical conclusion. So for those of you who aren't in the know but skip past my 90-second diatribe in the beginning of this video warning you about spoilers, either because you don't care about spoilers or are an idiot, let me catch you up to speed. The outset of Starfield has you uncovering a mysterious artifact for Barrett, who is a black guy but does not have a gun arm. I don't really know what to do with this information, but it does create an interesting Venn diagram between Final Fantasy VII and Starfield. Touching the artifact gives you an expansive hallucination of the universe and hooks you into the plot to discover the meaning behind the artifacts. From then, it's a collectathon to gather as many artifacts as you can so you can put them together and uncover what exactly they're for and why you have visions whenever you touch them. Along the way, you run into a faction of people known as Starborn that are flying futuristic-looking ships and are eventually hounded by one known as the Hunter, who is a nasty character who kills one of your companions. In my playthrough, he killed Sam Coe, so I kinda don't give a toss because I still have a Deus Ex Mankind Divided save file hanging around somewhere, and he's still alive in there, so. Along the way, you discover an ancient temple, complete probably one of the worst repeatable minigames Bethesda has ever devised, and in so doing, you unlock magic powers. Wait, well, no, super science powers, you know, space shouts like you get in Skyrim. Eventually, you meet with both the Hunter and another Starborn known as the Emissary and learn that Starborn are people who used to be human but are now something more, and that the artifacts are pieces that, when put together, create something called the Armillary, which will lead whoever assembles it to what is called the Unity. At the time, it's not clear what the Unity actually is, but it is obviously important and seems to be the place Starborn come from. The only real way you know for sure is to assemble the Armillary yourself, seek the Unity, and become a Starborn. So you do. You can choose to side with either the Hunter or the Emissary, each representing a unique worldview that you can decide to back. There's the paternalist Emissary, who wants to guard the pieces of the Armillary against those who would seek the powers of the Starborn to suit their own ends, and instead wants to make sure the only people who ascend are those they decide are worthy. Then there's the Hunter, who represents total individual liberty and brutal utilitarianism. The only real thing he believes in is himself and the most efficient path for him. In his mind, killing to get the pieces of the Armillary is justified because, simply speaking, it's the easiest. We'll get more into the Hunter and the Emissary in a little bit. In any case, you can choose one of them or neither of them to side with for the final battle for the last piece of the Armillary. One way or another, you win, get the final pieces of the Armillary, assemble it, activate your grav drive, and travel to a new place altogether where you meet, yourself? Kinda? It's obviously not you, since you're you, but it's something or someone that resembles you, and they explain what it is that you've been leading up to here, finally. The Unity is a confluence of all space and time, where all possible outcomes of every possible question and state of the universe converges. And it's by coming into contact with this Unity that one becomes Starborn. By so doing, they are born again in a new universe with new possibilities and different outcomes. It's why the different Starborn you meet, the emissary and the hunter, are people that you recognize, either the person who was killed in your universe that survived in another, or Keeper Aquilus. Aquilus. I totally forget how to say that guy's name. Anyway, that guy. Both of these two ascended to Starborndom instead of you in their universes, and they were born again in yours at some point. And it's at the Unity where Starfield went from kinda mediocre to, frankly, one of my favorite games I've played this year. And it was hard for me to pin down why for a while. It was just a gut reaction I had, but after a lot of thinking, I finally figured it out. It's because instead of a post-game that you have in Fallout 4 or Skyrim, where after the main quest you don't have anything to do except maybe some faction quests, Starfield opts instead to give you a new game plus, whereupon you start the game completely over from scratch the moment after you step through the Unity. This, at first, was a bit odd and disappointing to me. Like, I became one with the multiverse and all I got was this lousy t-shirt, but that's just how it appears at first glance. Sure, they outfit you with a magic spaceship and a new suit that I guess some people don't like. I think it looks awesome, but they also take away all of your stuff, like all of it, leaving you with nothing but the clothes on your back, and admittedly one of the best spaceships in the game. But all my money, my weaponry, where'd they go? I thought the benefit of a new game plus was you get to do all the early portions of the game with your bazookas and golden pistols, right? You're tasked with taking over the game essentially from where you left off after leaving Vectera with the first artifact, essentially starting the whole main quest over. But it's here, my dear children, where things start to become interesting. Because as you show up at the Constellation headquarters and are greeted by Sarah, you find out that you disappeared after getting the artifact. Well, the you who was you in this universe did anyway. Things don't proceed exactly as they did the first time, and you're actually given the option to use your insight as someone who's played the main story already to affect change in your world and not only skip all the quests you had originally, but save lives in the process, essentially saving the person who died in your previous playthrough from dying at the hands of the hunter by giving everyone a heads up. You can explain everything to Constellation at the outset and get right to collecting artifacts. And it doesn't stop there. You get Starborn-based dialogue options for any quest that you've completed in the game before, which rewards players who went through missions in previous playthroughs for their playtime. As far as I know, you can't skip any other major quests, unfortunately, which seems like a bit of a missed opportunity, but it's clear the thought was put into what it would actually be like for someone experiencing a time loop where they go back in time to an alternate reality with foreknowledge of the future. And I think that's an utterly brilliant play on Bethesda's part, and in my opinion makes up for them taking all of your stuff away. It shows real commitment to the bit, to the concept of a multiversal traveler, and I think adds way more replayability to the game than the typical route these games usually take, which is once you've done all the faction missions, you can do some Radiant quests and some side missions, and then you're basically on rinse and repeat for procedurally generated content until you get bored of the game. This way, you can actually take your main character through the plot as many times as you want and replay the bits you really liked, or see alternate endings to missions where you had to pick a specific side or different outcomes. And then you go through the Unity again and see the different results from your different actions in this new universe you've impacted before doing it all over again. It's really fun and really brilliant, I think, on Bethesda Bethesda's part. I also love the more times you go through the Unity, the more bedraggled your Starborn suit gets, as though the weight of your multiversal experience is weighing upon your body and soul. And the fact that the game uses a mix of rubber banding and fixed enemy levels means that you can actually feel like you're getting stronger in Starfield, unlike Skyrim, where everything always scales with your level and becomes insane damage sponges by the endgame. And what's even cooler than all of this is that the game makes it clear to you that the multiverses aren't carbon copies of one another. Things are slightly different, as though when a different reality is created by the many worlds theorem of quantum mechanics, that slightly different spin to a quantum particle echoes into something that's familiar in a lot of ways, but not quite the same. And Bethesda delivers on this part of the concept too. There's a chance, albeit a small one, that when you show up to the Constellation headquarters, you'll experience a totally divergent reality to the main one. There's a 5% chance, I think, that it'll happen, and I was actually able to get one to show up when I was recording footage for this video. In my alternate reality, all the members of Constellation were murdered off screen and only Vasco was left. There's about 10 alternate realities that you can experience, I believe, aside from the RNG variants with Radiance Quest locations that happen in every game, including one where you actually recruit yourself into your ship. The game is not perfect by any means. I have a 3090 GPU and I get performance issues left and right. I have at least one mission that I actually can't complete because the main mission objective won't show up. Sneaking is actually trash right now. I'm not sure what the heck's going on with that. And several missions feel uninspired and like they missed the mark. In particular, the Ron Hope conclusion for the Freestar Rangers feels like a real mixed bag. You can't arrest the guy at all, or any of the criminals you unearth as a Freestar Ranger, in fact, which just feels like a missed opportunity. And there are way too many copy-pasted areas. Like, I am so tired of the same deserted relay station showing up every other mission. Speaking of, I'm pretty sure the artifact locations are supposed to be new locations every playthrough, but it seems like they were always the same locations for me when I was grinding out my way to New Game Plus 10. I really don't want to see these problems glossed over with the mantra, the mods will fix it. You never really hear that about any other studio out there. It's just Bethesda Game Studio games that get a pass on stuff because of the robust modding scene, and I don't think it should be on the modding community to fix major issues with a game's release. Warts aside, Starfield is my favorite Bethesda game, I think, since Fallout 3, and I've sunk over 130, almost 140 hours into it. Over a third of what I've sunk into Fallout 4 in the 8 years it's been out. So, yeah, let me know what you think about the Starfield ending. Is it the best thing about the game? How did you feel giving up all your stuff to become a pretty Guardian Sailor Senshi? Was it worth giving up all your bullets, your ships, your money, your outposts, all to play the game again? For me, I barely did anything with the shipbuilder, and I still to this day haven't touched the outpost system, so it wasn't really a huge sacrifice for me. In fact, as someone who didn't use the shipbuilding at all, I thought it was kind of nice to be handed a fully functional endgame ship. It not being modifiable just doesn't bother me at all. Thank you so much for making it through that video. I had a fun time making it. I had a fun time with Starfield. Don't worry, there's a Starfield science video coming. It is gonna be my next one, yeah. It's coming out after this one at some point. I gotta get it done. This is largely a one-man show these days, although we've gotten Tanya back for some videos, not all, because that's expensive. If you want to help with those expenses, you can become a Patreon patron, just like everyone else who makes sure that this channel stays alive through the lean winter days. I'm talking about all of you out there, but especially these fine folk who paid me extra money to say their names at the end of videos. I'm talking about M. Lopez, JDubs97, Dr. Vem, Ronald Coleman, Alan Hagers, EditMTP, Marissa Resnick, and Nick Patterson. I love you guys, and I will see you next time, and hopefully I won't have a cold. Can you tell I have a cold? It's like not affecting me too bad, but I definitely got it. Got it from my child. That's what being a parent is like. Just getting sick all the time. Not like when they were young, though. When they were young, it was like every couple months. Now it's only like twice a year. Anyway, bye!